Chaos in the streets of Paris has highlighted a major challenge facing countries hoping to address climate change: how to tackle the issue without putting a financial strain on their citizens. The so-called Yellow Vest protests in Paris, the city where a global climate agreement was reached 3 years ago, has forced the government to postpone a planned tax hike on fuel. The tax was meant to curb vehicle emissions, but faced backlash from rural citizens in particular.
The protests in Paris are a vivid and timely illustration of the kind of challenges we face in undertaking a really significant transition to a low-carbon economy. There are costs along the way, and we have to make sure that that the poorest of our societies don't bear the brunt.
Elliot Derringer is the executive vice president of the Center for Climate and Energy Solutions, a nonprofit working to advance policies to tackle climate change. Newsy spoke to him before he left to attend the COP24 International Climate Meeting in Poland. The global conference is an opportunity for the participating countries to agree to common rules about how to implement the Paris Climate Agreement reached 3 years ago. But the way countries try to hit those Paris goals can spark public backlash. France's fuel tax rebounded especially heavily on the country's rural citizens who can't afford to rely on public transit. France is one of the many countries around the world experiencing a wave of nationalism and mistrust of global governance efforts like the Paris Accords. In the face of that trend, Derringer says it's all the more important that countries find ways to mitigate any disruption from their climate change policies.
In the course of a transition to a low-carbon society, certain sectors, certain communities may face a greater share of those costs, which is why we as a society need to find ways to cushion those transitional impacts and help them adapt to that transition. Here in the United States, as we transition to a cleaner economy, we are less reliant on coal. The communities and industries that depend on the production of coal have to absorb some of those costs. We've all benefited from the use of that coal over the years. We should be prepared to help them bear the costs of this transition.
President Trump has famously pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Agreement, but the withdrawal doesn't take effect until 2020. Until then, U.S. diplomats are still at the negotiating table for the agreement.